We've had a fantastic response to this event, with almost 200 people registered, including 16 MPs and 5 members of the House of Lords. This subject clearly strikes a chord with a lot of people, particularly when we read in the press reports from the likes of Education Endowment Foundation saying that 10 years progress in closing the attainment gap by disadvantaged students is likely to have been lost in the last 10 weeks as a result of the crisis.
You will all know that children from poor backgrounds start school behind and finish school even further behind. The gap widens through the secondary years. So on entry to school, children are about 18 months behind. By the time they are at GCSEs, they are a year and a half behind. COVID will widen the gap rather than narrow it.
We're very much aware, as Naomi said, about the disadvantage gap widening, but particularly in our communities with that loss of access, about how that gap further widens and how do we restore that.
I am absolutely certain it's got worse during the lockdown period, and everything we've heard on the Education Committee suggests the same. 79% of children at private school have been getting online lessons compared to 41% of our poorest children in state schools. So I am pretty confident that that gap has widened. I have a worry that we might lose focus on the most disadvantaged children in this period.
We had a report published last month, which was commissioned by the Education Endowment Foundation, involving 300,000 pupils from 250 schools who used SAM Learning over 9 years. The report showed a significant positive effect for all students who used SAM Learning for 10 hours or more, but a stronger significant positive effect for disadvantaged pupils, which was the equivalent of between a fifth and more than half a grade per subject improvement.
Understandably, we will be concerned about all children from this period, but I hope that we don't lose sight of the fact that it will be the disadvantaged children who've probably fallen furthest behind and need even more support to try and get back to the level they should have been at.
And it's interesting what happened with the SAM study that said, well, this really worked. I mean, I really agree that technology is a great contributor.
Every time I talk to my daughter, for example, about history, she'll look on the iPad, research it very quickly. You know, and I just think it's giving them the tools, it's giving them the platform for learning. And if they've got great teaching as well, fantastic. It's not just about COVID. I think the future is that way. And as we know, many young people will use that IT much more intuitively than we do. I think the way these programs are actually relating to the stage of knowledge that children are at is prolific.
Question here from Lord Massey, Doreen Massey. Social mobility has been a problem for many years before COVID. Families are now likely to be thrown into greater poverty, especially vulnerable ones. How can catch-up programs provide a broad and balanced curriculum to help young people out of this situation?
The SES gap is the largest. It's larger than the gender gap, and it's larger than the ethnicity gap.
We're very concerned about the lost learning time. If we think about really a period of 5 months, March to now. So our students are anxious to restart and restart well. They're resilient, but they're anxious to recover the lost time. And they want to help us to help them restart that learning. We're going to make sure that every child has a device from September and will have access to online learning